got confirmation. Okay, Madam Mayor, it's all set on my.
Good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody like the snow? Let's put some smiles on them faces. It's not gonna stay, guys. It's gonna go away. It's just pretty. Enjoy it while we got it. Chris, are you on here?
I am.
There you are.
Hi,
There you are. Hello, welcome.
Thank you.
We have. It looks like we're ready to go, Chris. I'm gonna let you start this off for our study session.
Great, thank you. And I'm going to share my screen here.
Okay.
So thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me to come and share with you what we've been talking about in our communities. Before we get into the details, I do want to share who YVCOG is and what we do, because I do know you have a few new council people. So Yakima Valley Conference of Governments is the regional local government. What we do is we provide services and programs to the cities, the town, and the county. We were formed in 1966 through the Interlocal Agreement Act. And so we offer services that our cities want us to offer and those programs. We have no taxing authority. We have no revenue except for what we receive from grants and or services that we offer. So I wanted to start there so that you understand who we are. And so if there is any service that our cities are required to perform and they would like to partner with other cities and offer that program or service, YVCOG can administer that for them. So let's see here. So back in November of 2021, YVCOG received a grant from Commerce to do a community law enforcement engagement. This is an outreach activity to try to connect the community with law enforcement so that community members know how to contact law enforcement and what their role is in helping communities increase public safety. So when we received this grant, we went out to the police chief meeting and shared with them what we would be doing in the communities. We let them know that we would be checking in with them and checking out, that our goal is to provide a partnership with the community, not the defund the police. That is not what it was about. And it was very important for us to get in front of the chiefs and be able to answer their questions and be able to share with them what we were going to be doing to hopefully assist them with community members partnering with them in ways maybe they were not in the past. So when we went out and met with them, we learned about something called NIBIN. And what NIBIN is a machine that it's a fingerprint of a bullet casing. And it was the Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearm Agency that was demonstrating this to the police chiefs. And half jokingly, our prosecuting attorney, Joe Bruzik, said, this is something Ivy Cog could do because it was very expensive. And we'll see that in a moment. And so I went back to my office and wrote up a proposal and took it back to Sheriff Udell and said, is this something that you think the police chiefs and you would be interested in doing, which is providing services with this NIBIN? And he said, yeah, let's take it out and see what people say and what their interest is. So before I get into some of the costs of the services that we have been learning about over the last few months, I wanted to share what the cost per shooting is. This is an average in Portland, Oregon. It's not an average here. We don't have this type of data yet. And it was put on the webpage with the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform. So per one suspect, if there is a homicide, the cost averages $1.4 million. If you think about the shootings in our communities, that's pretty expensive for our taxpayers. And I know that it doesn't all come out of your individual specific budgets, but it's still hitting the taxpayers. Just a shooting, and I say just a shooting because that really is the attitude that those of us who have lived here our whole lives have. It's almost like it's a normal thing to have shootings, but that's $670,000 per injury per one suspect. That's a lot of money. And so worst case scenario, and I'm going to go by this one really quickly and not let you guys really look at the numbers because I don't want you to get hung up there. But if we were to do the full meal deal of everything we've been learning about, it would cost our community $1.5 million for that first year to start up, compared to $1.4 million per homicide. So when we first went out to law enforcement, our thought was the NIBIN machine that looks at the fingerprint of the bullet casing, and to have a heat map of showing law enforcement where crime is at. And this would be region wide. Right now, we know that the city of Yakima has some employees that do this within the city of Yakima, but it isn't throughout the entire region. And we all know that crime moves around. It doesn't stay in your jurisdictional boundaries. But what happened, and what I have done, which is why this is a moving target so far, is that we had the NIBIN and the mapping, but then some people came back and said it would be great to have a rapid DNA machine. It would be great to be able to access cell phones and computers in regard to child pornography and human trafficking. And so as all of this was coming in, I just continued to add it to the pot. That doesn't mean that everything has to be funded or that all of these services would be offered right now. We're just bringing back to everybody, these are the costs. So to get the NIBIN machine, which looks at the fingerprint of the casing, there's two different avenues we could go. One is just putting the bullet into the machine, $156,000. The other was the analysis station for the cartridge casing that came to $225,000. So you can see why law enforcement kind of laughed and said, maybe YVCOG could do this and share it. The other one is the crime mapping. And so that is the cost of the software to be able to set that up and also to get all of the communities a dashboard to be able to look at that mapping. Then it was the DNA equipment. That's $456,000. That one was a surprise. And again, I want to remind you, all YVCOG does is administer. The operations of this is what your law enforcement will be doing. So services, we offer them to you. Our staff, we do a cost of living adjustment each year that's based off of all of our members' average. That's what we give to our staff. And then we don't have a general fund as you would. Our funding is specific to each program. So any funds that come in for a specific program always stay with that program. So if we had all of these services, the ESRI, the NIBIN, the DNA, and being able to access phones and computers, it would take 4 employees. I show you their salary and their benefits because it's the total cost. Their training, the mileage, driving back and forth to your communities, the equipment, the security, our admin overhead costs. So we pay rent, we pay phones, we pay power bill, just like you do. And then the other directs are things like, do we need to buy more testing kits? Things like that. This is a best guess. And of course, we would square up once we actually knew what the actual costs are to run these services for our members. So best case, worst case. The first column or the first graph that you're looking at shows the 1.5 million. Those first 5 years, we have applied for startup funding from Senator Murray. We are hoping to get that back. We have a very good chance of receiving this funding. So if that were the case, the first 5 years, what the first 5 years would be for our members is the next graph next to it. And what we're doing here is we are building up our funds so that each year we would only charge you half of what it would actually cost to help your budgets and also to make sure that that program is sustainable. So where do we go from here? We continue to work with you, but really law enforcement is the ones that will be looking at prioritizing services, developing those policies and procedures. What we're going to be asking our members are you interested? That may be, yeah, we're definitely interested, but our police chief says, these are the 2 services that we want. We would have to be able to fund those services. So as I shared, we can play with that. I wanted to really share with you what the administration looks like. but I would really like to turn it over to Chief Chrisman and Sheriff Udell to really explain the operations of this, because I'm not a police officer. I'm not an expert in their world. And it's services that we would really be offering to them. And I think it's important to hear what they think. So I'm going to be quiet and turn it over to them.
Thanks, Chris. Oh, there he is. Sheriff
Hi.
Udell.
I'm Chris Wickenhagen.
I see that. So Sheriff, we'll let you go first.
All right. Well, good presentation, Chris. The idea is very solid, and how it benefits law enforcement, in the practical sense is, well, I guess there's two big ones. Number one is it gets us evidence a lot faster than what we normally would. And so right there, I mean, that's a big up to it. But it also is going to offer an analyst that will put all the information together so that we as law enforcement can use it easily. Cops like to be spoon-fed information. We don't like to have to dig too deep for it. There's a lot of cases out there, lots going on, and we really like low-hanging fruit. And that's where they develop the information that's going to be low-hanging fruit. So how would this be managed? I envision probably an executive board of different police chiefs and myself from across the valley to make sure that the service provided by the YVCOG meets our needs, hits our standards, and really, truly is up to par as far as the laws and rules and all that sort of stuff. I think I've heard a few people talk about YVCOG being in charge of it. I don't really think that's not my vision. YVCOG is going to stand up. They're going to do all the administration of it, the money, because YVCOG belongs to the cities, right, in the county. So you would take care of all that. And then myself and Chief Chrisman and our friends, we would make sure that the service does what we need it to for us, because that's pretty important. Because we, here in the county, and I know across this county, we're all used to not working with a whole lot of money and making sure that what we spend it on is worth it. And so I think that'll be kind of like mission number one for us, is to make sure that it's worth it. And then number two, that we get the results that we need. And we're very, very excited about this because there's a lot of stuff going on in this county. And you probably heard me say before, and I'm sure Chief Chrisman has mentioned this, we tend to work apart. We all focus, on what our responsibilities are, which is what we're supposed to do. But crime travels, and these people move around, and we need to be more coordinated. We need to be able to get all this information wrapped up for us. And so that's why I'm a supporter of this idea. So it just comes down to creating a system and a center that is acceptable to everybody, how we finance it. And then Chief Chrisman and myself and our buddies will make sure that it's run correctly.
Thank you. Chief Chrisman.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The only thing I'll add to that is just to give you some real life perspective with regards to the obstacles that we're working against right now in law enforcement in this area, in the Yakima, well, I'll say Central Washington region. There is no one who does cell phone or computer forensics. The last person that was doing that was a Yakima PD officer who retired. And so that left us at a deficit in that area. So I think that was a big push why Chris was prompted to add that to the services menu for this regional crime center. We are currently driving brass from any shooting in our area to the Tri-Cities. And when we can't get into the Tri-Cities, for instance, I was talking to the Moxie sergeant the other day. He drove his brass up to Spokane in order to get it inputted into a NIBIN machine, as Chris described to you. And so there's a true need here in our region for those two services alone. The rapid DNA machine or device, we send all DNA to the state crime lab, and you get put into a holding queue. And just so you're aware, that stuff gets triaged. So if it's a murder, it gets a higher priority than, say, a residential burglary where someone cut themselves on a piece of glass and there was some blood left at the scene. And so we may get shuffled and restacked multiple times by the time our submission actually makes it to the analysis phase. So to have some of these tools in our backyard is really it's exciting for all of law enforcement that we've been talking to. There could be some holdouts for any number of reasons, money or things like that. But I think the vast majority of us are very excited about it. So I guess I'll just leave it to some questions from council, and between the sheriff and Chris and I, we should be able to field most of those. Don't everybody go at once.
Okay. I have a question. So have the county commissioners been asked to help with their ARPA money?
So no, I have not applied for the ARPA funds. I did see that their application is out now, and this is ARPA eligible, so they could use those funds to help support this, along with the cities can use their funds for part of their share. I think that's something that we can sit down and talk with our members if it is something that our members would like us to do and are wanting to give us a letter of support for that. That is definitely something that we would do.
And Chris, when you say a letter of support, that's just a letter of support for YVCOG to move forward with it. When in the planning stage, that's the letter of support is not saying, yes, we're in.
Mm-hmm. So the letter of support for the ARPA funds would be different than saying, are you in?
Okay.
Because if the commissioners were to fund part of this, whatever it is that we asked for, they would expect those cities to follow through with their commitment also.
Okay. All right. Mr. Bell.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. I don't question that there's a need or an application for this in the county area, but I do have some questions related to, is there any history of what the ongoing maintenance is? Because it seems awful high to have a 3-year maintenance program that's half the cost of a new machine. And does that mean we're going to have to replace it every 3 years? You know, or does technology move along quickly enough, or do we have any experience or knowledge of that yet, that it would have to be updated because it's now outdated as technology advances?
I can speak on Esri's for the mapping. That is something that we automatically update every year at COG because we do the land use planning also. So that cost is an annual maintenance of $2,500. As far as the other equipment, I will defer to sheriff or chief if you know what type of maintenance.
Yeah, we're finding that on our software programs and our electronic equipment, the maintenance costs are pretty high. It's unfortunately, it's a cost of doing business, and it's probably in my budget, it's the biggest increasing part that I have for these type of systems. That's why there's such a big advantage to sharing, because it's just so much money. We have the cell phone software from Cellbrite, extremely expensive. It's very expensive to send my detectives off to get training. To the point, it's just, if the cell phone data wasn't so critical in investigations, and I mean an amazing amount of investigations, it's right there at not being able to justify it. But we have, but it's just been a lot of money.
Roger, I can speak to software maintenance costs. Normally, software maintenance is 20% of the original cost of the product. However, that often does not include if there is a major version upgrade. Oftentimes, and usually major version upgrades are like every 10 years, but they literally make you go back and repurchase the software, usually say 7 to 10 years, because they have a major version upgrade. So you pay 20% per year for the maintenance cost. Basically, it's to keep it licensed and some updates, and then there will be usually eventually a major version upgrade.
Thank you.
Roger, you have your hand up again?
Yeah, I have another question. Where do we think on the employees? Do we think 4 employees are going to be the long-term, or is that just an initial value assigned to this? In other words, will the staffing grow with time on that?
So I will share my thought process, and then of course turn it over to Sheriff and Chief. The 4 employees were if we were to purchase all of the equipment that is being proposed. I would love to be able to say, I don't think they're going to be very busy and we don't need that many people, but Sheriff and Chief just smile at me and say I can keep living in my rosy colored world. But I think it is going to need to be something that is reevaluated as time goes on. And I'll just turn it over to Chief and Sheriff.
I would say this. If we had a cell phone forensics specialist and a computer forensics person, they would stay busy their entire 40-hour work week. They would probably be overloaded almost immediately. And Sheriff, unless you think something different, but just talking, I was at a Chiefs meeting today, and there was a bit of a side discussion about this. And every person that was a part of that discussion was like, we have cases, we need to dump a phone, and we need to dump a phone now. And we can't find anybody in the state to do it. They were talking about sending it out to an independent private vendor. So that's the sort of level of desperation, if you will, looking for that sort of personnel. Part of the problem is that an agency will stand up, like the Sheriff was saying, an agency will stand up a detective and then send them to very expensive training. And it's always out of state. And then they have to buy very expensive equipment to do this job. And then someone else finds out that, oh, wait, SELA has a detective who's now trained in that. And so all of a sudden people are knocking on our door and trying to get their cell phones dumped and their computers dumped. And so, honestly, counsel, I couldn't even imagine coming to you and asking for you to fund that here at the SELA Police Department, but being able to share that resource and understanding that we're all going to kind of get into a queue, not unlike what the State Patrol is doing right now, murder, assaults, rapes, trafficking, missing persons are all going to take priority over some of those lower level crimes. But that person's going to stay very busy. Crime analysts, I think, are going to stay very busy too. And from my perspective, I think that's where the future of policing is analytics. You know, how do we start predicting crimes in our community? And that's what crime analysts often do. They gather data, they crunch the numbers, they tell us in areas where crime's more active than other areas where we can focus or put targeted enforcement on things. So I think those people are going to stay very busy as well. If I was going to guess about any of these positions, I'd guess the rapid DNA might be hit and miss early on until agencies start to realize the power behind that. And then that workload is going to pick up as well. And so maybe Roger, somewhere down the road, they may add or even possibly subtract if we find out that we're not, servicing that device any longer, or we're not using it enough to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, Chief Chrisman nailed it. That would have been my answer. Exactly. And we've had a detective. At one point, we had 2 detectives that were trained in the cell phone technology in the forensics. And one promoted out that left just one behind, and another one retired. And then we sent another guy off to another training. And he's right. As soon as other agencies found out we had it, here came the knocks. But my problem is my detectives got other cases. And so it's not very effective. And so just using that technology, we had to prioritize. So it never truly hits its potential. So we kind of reserve it for the important stuff, the rapes and the homicides and that sort of thing, when that technology could be used a lot more if there was somebody dedicated to that device. And the chief's right. 40-hour work week, without a doubt. Everyone's going to want phones examined.
Russ, you have your hand up.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris and Sheriff and Chief, for being here. And I apologize for stepping out of the meeting for a second. Hope I'm not repeating the question that's already been asked. Is there a location determined for this center?
So we have had a few discussions, and I did, Russ, take the word center out because people were actually thinking that we were building a building, and we're not doing that. These are services for law enforcement. So we have talked about actually having this at the Sheriff's Department or at one of the other law enforcement departments, just for security purposes, and also some networking with some other law enforcement agencies that are walking in and out of those departments that would not happen if it were at YVCOG. So that is still to be discussed with the law enforcement. It's really going to be their call. We just will provide the people and the training to be able to provide those services.
I appreciate that. My question was a little bit selfish, because we're proposing to put on bond a brand new police station here for the city of Selah, and I'm wondering if there's opportunity to house a department like that here. I know that we're building for growth here in the city of Selah, so my hope is, my gut feel is there might be space, but I don't know if maybe I'm off base, Chief Chrisman. But I'd be interested in reviewing that opportunity there.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking this through, Russ. So excuse me if it feels a little clunky, but there is some space in our new building that is future growth. I'm thinking in the detective division, we have 2 offices for supervisors. Ultimately, 25 years from now, we'll have detective sergeant for persons crimes and one for property crimes. And so those offices could be used. And of course, the detective suite has a large open area. And so, yeah, I mean, to simply answer your question, I'm sure that, especially on the front end, if the board decided that that would be a suitable place for this to be housed, we could certainly do that in our brand new building here, brand new Selah Police Department. Did I say that enough? Brand new police department? Good, good.
The sheriff's office is, we're looking at a new facility as well. Well, maybe a renovated building. We've landed on the new old jail down by the fairgrounds. And while we don't have any space for anything right now at our current facility, we will have room down there. But that's in the future. That's going to be a few years away. And so hopefully we'll have a little more idea of what might be needed for service like this. But for now, there's really I don't know of any police departments in the county that have available space. Almost every single one is already right at their capacity. Would you agree, Chief, on that one?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I would say is that the value of having it at a law enforcement facility is that you're inside of a secured building. So for instance, as I was saying in the detective
You
suite,
have new mail.
you've got, you'd be inside of a locked room, inside of a locked building, inside of a locked gate. And so when you're dealing with evidence and you're dealing with, sensitive materials, like, as was mentioned earlier, whether it be human trafficking or child pornography and things like that, you want that in a place that's not necessarily a public building where somebody could walk down the hallway and look through and see what was going on in there. So yeah, I don't know of any other agency in the area right now that has room for anything like that.
Madam Mayor, it looks like there is a hand raised from the attendee side. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I'm just notifying.
Okay. Let me see where, let me find them. Attendees raise hand. Okay. Sterling Sovey. There he is. Sterling, would you have a comment? You need to unmute.
No, thank you. I'm just listening in and getting information on this conversation. Thank you.
Okay, your hand was up. That's why we asked you.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was an accident. Sorry about that.
Were you waving at us? Council, anybody else have any questions? Roger, your hand's up.
Yes. Is there any conversation about which organization, which entity these 4 employees, if you hired all 4, would fall under? Is that the county or a particular department or what?
So that is what YVCOG does, which is we do hire the staff and we employ them. So that way they are not under any specific council or the commissioners. They truly are shared staff by all of our members. And that is how we make sure that all of our members are treated equally and have that equal voice around our table. So even, if this service were hosted in Selah at their police department, the staff would still be under YVCOG. If the services were at the sheriff's department, the staff would still be under YVCOG. They would not be under the county commissioners, or they would not be under this city of Selah.
Thank you.
Kevin.
Just to share some information, just to bring, I know a lot of the council probably isn't aware of this. We as City of Sealand, all the cities actually do something similar with staff now with personnel out of the Yakima County TS department. They are a county employee, but they are fully funded by all the law enforcement, fire districts, and other districts in the county. They are fully funded by a combination that's through the YACOR group. The difference between this and what would be YACOR is that YACOR included fire districts as well. So we are in sense already paying for staff that is not Yakima County, or that is not City of Sealand staff. So the YACOR actually paid one full-time employee and one half-time employee within the Yakima County Technology Services for the services ran by YACOR.
Hey, Kevin, could you elaborate a little bit on what the YACOR is?
YACOR is a combination of, it's basically based on the software, the Spillman software, which is used for 911 calls. It is the same software used throughout the county in the law enforcement vehicles and by the dispatchers, the various dispatchers, both fire and police. YACOR is made up, in fact, our mayor is part of the YACOR board. It's similar. It's made up of various board members, fire chiefs, police chiefs, mayors throughout the county. So that's what YACOR, and basically it covers all the costs of the Spillman software. Spillman is much broader than this because it's used not only by fire, police, it's also used by DOC. Every federal agency or state agency that has access to it pays into it. So it is a very similar proposal or product to what was being talked about here. It is a shared service that everyone who participates pays for. Does that help?
Thank you, Kevin. Mike?
I didn't really have a question because I'm very familiar with all three of the programs. But I just wanted to make a comment about having worked in Yakima for the Yakima PD. I couldn't imagine not having those capabilities and having the ability to use those systems. It's not like on TV where you get automatic results or immediate results. When you send stuff off to the lab, the state lab, which is in Kennewick or Cheney for Eastern Washington, it could be months before you get your results back. And if you have something that, some evidence that is very crucial and time sensitive, then these are systems that if you had them readily available, you could continue on with your investigation instead of having to wait for the information to get back to you from the crime lab. So all three of them are very important. Like I said, I couldn't imagine not working without them or working without them and having them available. The things that we did with the unit that I was in, we used all of them, all of the different systems, and it is very helpful to be able to get information back quickly because it is right here in our own backyard instead of having to send it off.
Thank you, Mike. Sheriff, a question kind of came to mind when you were talking about sending officers to training to go through the cell phones. And if you have an officer in your department who does that, and other departments know about it, then they come to that officer to see if they can help them. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, yes.
So since Yakima already does some of this stuff, does anybody go to Yakima to get help from them?
Yakima does not currently have an officer that is certified to work on that equipment.
And what about the services that they do have in the crime lab?
I don't know if the city of Yakima has any internal, they actually had a bit more, and I know that Michael will remember when Kirsten was there. She provided a lot of services. They still do some fingerprinting, and I think they do examine possibly some ballistic items, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, see, I was under the understanding that they did do some of the ballistics.
Yeah, they
And I could
did.
be wrong.
Yeah, they did for sure. I'm not sure if they're still doing it or not,
Okay,
but they have in the past. I can tell you that.
okay. Okay, Mike?
Yeah, unfortunately, the problem with relying on Yakima is the fact that they are so busy with their own stuff. A smaller agency that comes in with their evidence, it would triage just like it does at the state crime lab. And so you'd be waiting until, until they got around to being able to get to it.
Yeah. Okay. Russ, is your hand up again? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think your answer, Chris, is going to be that this is further down. The answer is further down the road. But one of my apprehensions about creating a new government program is that backlog that we've talked about in other areas. How do we staff properly? How do we make sure that we're resolving this issue or not getting into this issue in the future of not having the people to staff it? We're at a labor shortage now. How do you manage that?
Yeah, thanks, Russ. It's an issue everywhere. So YVCOG, because we do not hire straight out of college, we can afford to pay them a little bit more. The responsibility is regional, not specific to one city. And so our hope would be, and you saw that I put training in that budget, that is not something that we take away from our employees. They work for our cities, and the expectation is that they are experts in those areas. So we can send one person to training that would benefit all 15 jurisdictions rather than doing that individually. As far as finding those experts, again, I'm going to come back to the experts, which is law enforcement, and they're going to be participating in making sure we get the right people in the right positions.
Thanks, Chris. Kevin?
So I guess my question is for Chief or Sheriff Udell. So you kind of generally say this would be really beneficial. What's that mean in real terms to your guys' jobs, to our prosecutor, when you say it will be beneficial? How does that, what will the benefit, what will the citizens see if these things are invoked?
Okay, first of all, the speed of getting evidence back means that victims aren't going to have to wait as long on a disposition for a case. Right now, we have cases that can be out for months waiting for evidence to come back, either be DNA evidence or some sort of firearms type stuff. If we're able to access that stuff right away, then we can move forward. We can move ahead in a case right now. On the prosecutor's side, it's the same way. We can give them a case, but then they don't want to charge until they get a piece of evidence back. And that can be, again, just forever and a day. It also helps law enforcement because, to find out, we often believe this not get crimes where we really don't have good suspects, or we have a flock of people we have to look at. And all these systems can quickly narrow down who we should look at, and then also exclude people, which is really nice for us and people involved in these cases to be able to realize their lives can continue. They're not going to be looked at as suspects when they're not. So a quicker focus makes us more efficient. We've got so many cases, especially at the sheriff's office. We have the detectives that are just, oh my God, they get weeks and weeks and weeks behind on cases. Having information immediately allows them to clear that stuff off. Either it's a go or it's not. They can move on to the next thing. It's like that low-hanging fruit thing that I talked about. It just allows them to pluck that off quicker and move on, instead of waiting. And all these cases that just get piled up because the DNA is going to take a year to get, or all these cases with drive-by shootings and assaults and homicides. We've got all this NIBID evidence, but we don't know what to do with it. So it just piles up. Instead, we'll have actionable information right away to move us down the road. They do better on that one.
I would say to the council, you all have been very gracious, and the police department recognizes how you support us. But, and this is a big comma after that, but if I came to you and asked you for funding for 2 FTEs, 1 crime analyst and 1 cell phone forensics expert, I don't know that you would be willing to fund that. And so from my seat, I'm thinking if we don't have a regional crime center, then SELA doesn't benefit from that level of expertise that, we could share with other agencies. There's a lot of us, there's SELA, there's Zilla, there's Mabton, Sunnyside. I mean, we may not be able to afford those FTE people, but together we could share them. And I think that's the biggest piece for me.
It's also interesting to note, and I had this conversation already today with a couple agencies in the Valley, that, we look at in our county, we tend to look inward. And so we look at the smaller agencies like Zilla and Grandview, Moxie, and we think of Yakima as a big agency. They're not really a big agency. They can't afford this stuff either. It's a rare agency the size of Yakima that has all this stuff on their own. This partnership is really going to be beneficial to everybody.
Yeah, I think the numbers reflect it, and Chris, you can correct me here, but don't they represent about 39% of the contribution of the county?
Yeah, they're 38%.
38%, yeah. So they're not a monopoly. They're not a majority stakeholder in this. Just to put that in perspective as well.
Cliff, get your hand up. You're muted.
So, talking about cost, that we're talking, it's for us $20,000 a year. And I haven't heard any discussion, radio, around town, anything about the need for something like this, and the additional efficiency. And so we're getting, with this proposal, we would get more efficiency and more services than we currently have. But when you're talking about driving the brass to Tri-Cities or Cheney, we're talking transportation, we're talking about what little bit we may have, we have additional savings. how much do we spend on, how much do we spend now on some of the things that this expenditure would be included? How much are we saving this when we spend this much? Did you follow that?
Well, to be honest with you, Cliff, I don't know that I can quantify that. I wish I could. That'd be really stunning, wouldn't it? But you're looking at an hour and a half to at least an hour and a half to the Tri-Cities. That's an hour and a half of personnel time as well, gas, wear and tear on the vehicle. And then to do a NIBIN entry early, I mean, like starting to learn it takes much longer than once you're more proficient at it. But you're down there for, a good hour plus, or maybe a little bit more. And if you're waiting in line with somebody else, then you've got to wait for them to get through the process. So it's all about time and person power, the amount of money that we spend on somebody to go down and do it. The other thing to keep in mind is, if it doesn't exist, then it's just not something that we have ready access to. And I think that's the reoccurring message here is that there are some agencies that have just said, well, I'll send it to the state lab, and when it gets done, it gets done. And as Mike suggested earlier, I mean, you can wait months to get the results back. And so if you go back to that original slide that Chris shared with us, the cost of a single homicide, $1.5 million, $1.4 million. I mean, how big is this? It's big. It's big. And our $20,000 contribution in comparison to all of that is an interesting comparison. So
When we send something to the state crime lab, do we pay a user fee or whatever the correct terminology would be? Or is that something we contribute to the crime lab, sort of a basically flat rate? Or if we use additional services, do we pay extra?
if it's something that's done in-house, they will just do it for us. But again, when we get it back is we're at their mercy.
There's a lot of limitations too in the state crime lab. Not only does it take a long time, there's a lot of things they just won't do. For instance, with DNA, that is pretty much limited to only serious felonies, burglaries and thefts and that sort of thing. They won't generally do because they're so backlogged. And now in the past, I've been able to form some relationships with the scientists of the lab and get things pushed through. Like one time north of Selah, I had a burglary in which this house was cleaned out. These people came back after a 3-week vacation and there is nothing in this house. I mean, it looked like they'd moved out, but they didn't. And the sheriff's deputies went out. There's a couple of them went out there and they found one piece of evidence. It was a pop bottle that was half full. And the suspect left it on the only item left in the house, a card table, right in the middle of the house. And that's all we had. Now, a burglary, that's a property crime. To the state crime lab, not a big deal. To the people that lived in that house, it was the crime of their lifetime. They've lost everything. And I was able to talk the crime lab into doing it. And it took me a couple weeks on the phone, but they said, fine, send it. And about a year later, I got results. And it was a name that we never considered as a suspect, and we ended up getting a conviction. With the rapid DNA, we would have a name, hopefully, within 4 hours of submission. That's a completely different scenario. Instead of telling people, and this is tough, yeah, I know that the burglar left blood behind, but we don't have anybody to test that for DNA. That makes a local rapid DNA machine pretty dang nice.
Okay, it is 4:30. Elizabeth, I didn't want to cut you short. Did you have your hand up?
I did, yeah. I wanted to be cognizant of the time though, if you need to move on.
Yep. It is 4:30. We are scheduled for another study session. Thank you, Chris, Sheriff Udell, Chief Chrisman, for your information.
Thank you.
Chris,
Thank you for the time.
Yep. And Chris, real fast, what is the next step?
The next step is just us hearing if you are interested in us pursuing this on SELA's behalf.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay. Rocky, Zach, are we ready for the Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Plan?
We're almost ready. We're waiting on good old Ronald, our spokesperson.
He's here, gentlemen. He's here. He was over on the attendee side and I was having trouble getting him onto the panelists. So he's having to use a new link. So give him just 1 second.
Okay.
Thank you.
And did I see Deb on here?
Yes, Deb Lacombe with HLA is on also.
There she is. There she is. I see her.
Madam Mayor,
Hello, Deb. How are you?
doing great.
Here he comes.
Yep.
All right, guys, that was the technical difficulties. He was definitely waiting, so he's not late.
Ron, can you hear us? There he is. Okay, gentlemen, whenever you're ready.
Ron, you're muted, just so you know. Ron, you're muted.
There we go. How's that? Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
All right, sorry about that. So good afternoon to everybody. And we were asked to kind of update our 5-year plan, our comp plan. And the last time that it was done was for the years of 2013 to 18. So it was definitely time to get this updated and to get things moving. So there was a partial one that was drafted in 2020, but it was not completed or adopted. And so the plan that we're putting together is going to be required and accepted both by the RCO and the growth management plan. So in order to put this together, we're looking at grants and future funding. We are kind of the plan is really a document to be used to manage and enhance the recreational area here in SELA. And we want to make sure to build on previous plans and to keep consistent with the direction and growth of SELA's recreational opportunities. And so really with Rocky's help here and Zach and Kelsey, and the whole crew, maintenance crew there, it's going to be a blueprint and an outline for our future of what really we're looking at. So we're in the process of calculating the inventory and condition of, our structures and the needs for the department and creating a wish list. So we're in the process of looking at previous park and rec documents, related studies and proposals, and updating information needed for the project. So, why are we needing to update this plan? Well, we need it in, like I said, in place for grants and fundings. And I personally, feel that it's really a good way to make sure that we're all working together and towards the same goals. And what is the community and our users, what are they really wanting? And so some of the projects that we have on the wish list is to give my senior center here some love. We need the lobby area repainted. We need to replace the customer window. It's just a small window. There's really two kind of holes here that folks can stick their heads through. It's not inviting at all. We're looking at expanding the office area here and take a look at the front of the building and maybe give it a little tender love and care also. We're looking at maybe building a soccer complex. Right now we're dependent on using the school district's fields and trying to work around their needs and their schedule. And it's kind of been a nightmare at times trying to figure out and work with them to make sure that we all work together on what's going to work so that we're not overlapping. We want to build a play structure at Palm Park to replace the one that was taken out of there. We want to replace the play bark at the different parks. So how we can pull this all together and make it a reality. We've teamed up with HLA, Engineering and Land Survey, to help the department fulfill and gather data and research that is needed for the plan. So we have a couple of meetings already that we've had with HLA to get everybody on the same page and set up a timeline and schedule. If you look at your packet on the second page there, I'm not sure if it was Teresa or Rocky that got this information together, but that's kind of where we stand. You can take a look, it's in your packet there and our timelines. So things are starting to come together. We've kicked off with a survey to get the community's input and what do they want. The survey consists of 16 questions, and that's going to be available on the internet as a survey on SurveyMonkey, and also we'll have paper copies available for folks to fill out. We envision in putting these in the Civic Center here for program participants and rental users, to have some copies available at City Hall and the library. And then we're also going to have a booth at Community Days where folks can fill out the survey there. So there's really no reason that folks, we should get a great, example for different ages and, the users to see what really is going on. We're hoping to get the survey going live on April 19th, and we're planning on running it through August the 19th. You have a copy in your packet there of the questions, so I won't go through those, but we got, we're trying to hit all ages and they're also in the users to make sure that we're hitting the right folks. And what are their needs? We have our ideas, but we want to make sure that are we hitting, what the community and the users want to see back. And so we're going to calculate those and make sure that we're heading in the right direction. And what do they want to see in the park facilities and the green spaces? So we're going to gather that and hopefully be able to maintain our goals, which, we're looking at the quality of life and to meet the needs of every citizen out there. And that's with the survey, we're hoping to, like I said, to hit all those different age groups, to hit the users. What do they really want from us? And we want to develop and maintain a safe environment and neighborhoods. And we want to make sure that we get a positive experience for everyone. And also just being a leader in creating positive leisure and recreation opportunities for everyone. So I guess just kind of would like to I don't know, just know that we've taken a look and tried to hit all areas, make sure that we're heading in the right direction. We've, like I said, we got with HLA to help us out to make sure that we are hitting all the areas. So I don't know. I hope that we can get some feedback from the city council tonight and to give us some ideas of kind of the direction that you folks would like to see us head in. And I guess just my portion, I'd just like to kind of just say that a shout out to the whole department and, to Rocky and the gang. If you guys have gone through or headed over to any of the parks, you're going to see those parks get used, and you're going to see families out there. You're not going to just see hoodlums, sitting out there that are causing troubles. You're going to see families that are laughing, that are having a great time. And, it's pretty neat to see. And Rocky's crew out there that's cleaning up those parks. So they look great. And so Rocky, I really appreciate I walk during my lunchtime and go through Wixon a lot, and it looks great out there. So just want to give a little shout out to you while I had a chance.
Thanks, Ron. Appreciate that.
I think that also, if you take a look, we've got 364 age 3 through 12-year-olds that are signed up for spring soccer. That's great. Those are kids that are going to get an opportunity to be playing on a team sport and, not just sitting home, either playing video games or in front of their TV. So here at the center, we're going to start up the first week of May with the Senior People for People lunch program again, to get those seniors out that are sitting at home due to COVID and get them out socializing again, and hopefully get some programs that we can get them involved in. So as far as, I don't know if you have any questions for us, but we just, like I said, hope to get some feedback and some direction and vision from the council, and to see what you guys are looking forward to, and what your vision is for the future of the Park and Rec Department.
Thank you, Ron. Rocky, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Ron, thank you very much. As Ron alluded to, in your packet on the second page is the schedule for this project. Today is the kickoff, and what we have provided you is the table of contents for what this document is, how we're going to build it. That'll be on page 3. But I want council to realize that these documents take a long time. There's a lot of staff hours involved. HLA is going to put a lot of hours into this. And really, we need the community to take this survey and really tell us what it is that the community is looking for in our parks, or what needed improvements there are in the parks and the recreation program. And what we're lacking or what we're doing a great job on. So our goal is by February 23rd of 2023, we are hoping and we will have the plan adopted by council and also RCO. Moving on to the third page in your packet, that's the table of contents. Like I say, this is the meat and potatoes of the plan. Everything in there we will address as we have in previous plans. One of the main things that we hope to get feedback on tonight from council is on page number 4 in your packet. It's the goals and policies. One thing we as a staff did, and with HLA's help, we came up with goals and policies and objectives, but we wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything that we had missed or any ideas that you may have that you would like to see us add. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to review this much, but if there are any comments on that, I would love to take them. And then also, as Ron said, we have the Parks and Rec comp plan survey. We are going to have a QR code. It will be all over town. Businesses, we're going to reach out to businesses. We're going to try to get it on everybody's Facebook page, any page we can get it on at City Hall, Public Works, Civic Center, wherever we can get this thing so that people can actually take this survey and we can get some good opinions from the community. So if anyone has any questions, I would love to take those now, or if Deb or Zach want to jump in here, feel free.
I just
Thank
want to add to Rocky's blasting out that QR code. We've got Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So we'll put that all over social media. I'm sure Katrina will have no problem blasting it on hers too. But like Rocky said, we will print out QR codes in English and Spanish, and we'll hit the pavement if we have to and walk around and bug people. I'm not afraid to ask people to hang things up in their businesses. We do it every year for the car show. So we'll throw up QR codes and hot rods posters and get everybody. We'll have them at our events too, since we're running through August. We'll have a few thousand people coming through at the 4th of July. We'll have a few hundred people coming through at the hot rods. So we'll have spots where we'll have those QR codes posted. So if people get bored of looking at cool cars or listening to cool music, they can scroll through our 16 question survey. 16 questions as of now. If you guys have questions that you'd like to see on there, let us know. It hasn't been published yet. We've got a few days still. So if there's things you'd like to see or things that you think we shouldn't have on that, just let us know and I can make the adjustment pretty easily.
Thanks, Zach. Russ, you have your hand up.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. One of my questions, we've got some goals here, and I'm sure you guys have plenty of ideas of what you want to see accomplished. What's our funding source to make some of these happen? Zach, you and I spoke about that, about the soccer field the other day that had been touched on a few years ago. Is that kind of the focus there on that field, on that parks, or has that changed? And how do we intend to fund some of these projects?
Oh, I would love to build a soccer complex. I did, with the plan, we can apply for grants through RCO, through all kinds of different programs. I know I just got an email last week, I think. The owner of the Seahawks has like $49 million extra that he hasn't spent this year or last year that he's rolling over to this year that he wants to use specifically for youth sports complexes. Are we going to get it this year? Probably not, but it's, the grant process is opening up here in the next month or so. So we've got avenues we can go down. We have to have a comp plan in place to apply for a lot of these grants. There was one last year that was specifically for, recouping money for youth programs that cities put on through COVID. If you could show that you did this summer camp and you had this many kids and it cost you this much money, you could get, it was called the SEEP grant. You could get some money kickback from that. But you had to have an adopted comp plan to qualify. So like, I know that the city of Yakima, they got like $250,000 in SEEP grant money last year for programs that they put on through COVID. So with a comp plan approved with and adopted by council and RCO, it just opens up a whole bunch more alleys for us to apply for grants and get additional funding. So.
If I can jump in here real quick, question 13 is what additions, if any, would you like to see added to the SELA parks? I know that question was, do we want to have a soccer complex? We may find out through the survey that yes, we want to have a soccer complex, but we also want to be able to have great kids there, lacrosse, other programs that could utilize that space. And so I'm really hoping that that's what this survey will show us or lead us down the path of what the community actually would like to see here.
And the nice part too about a soccer complex, if that's what we want to call it, is, a full-size soccer field is technically bigger than a football field. So we could, like Rocky said, we could have grid kids, we could have lacrosse, we could have soccer, we could have ultimate frisbee, we could have whatever out there with, 2 or 3 full-size soccer fields, or I should just say full-size green spaces that could accommodate lacrosse, football, and soccer. It doesn't necessarily have to be a soccer complex, just some green space that the city owns that's big enough to use for our programs, but to also bring those teams and programs that are going out to SOZO, bring them back into SELA, like Grid Kids, like Yakima Valley Lacrosse, or whatever they're called for our SELA teams. It would give us that opportunity to bring those groups back into town.
Zach, Roger, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I know we're trying to differentiate the aquatic center as not being part of the city, and thank you for that statement at the beginning of the survey. However, I think we'd be more inclusive to the entire community if we changed under our objectives 4.1.2 sub 4, where we're saying that we're partnering with the school district and the SDA chamber, whatever, if we included softball, baseball, and aquatics, maybe others in that you bring to light that they are part of the overall recreation program of the city or the community here. So I think that would help us if we could include those in that.
Thank you, Roger.
Yeah, if we're going to do a survey, I'd be interested in knowing just how much of our activities people are aware of. Are they aware of all the different activities we currently offer? And the second part I would be interesting to know is how do they get most of their information regarding such activity? So that we had that type of feedback from, especially if this goes out on paper and stuff. But I guess the question is, how does a person know what activities they would like to add if they don't know everything that we already do? So if that could be included, I think that would be a benefit and clarification point.
Thank you, Kevin. Jeff?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to add, just for those council members and kind of what Rocky's kind of already said and what Ron kind of touched on, for those council members that haven't been involved in a plan like this, the survey is really the important part of this plan, because this is what the council is doing is through its staff and its consultants reaching out to the community to get what does the community want to have put in place in its parks and in its different programs and everything for that. Once Rocky gathers all that together and Ron and Zach put the plan together. The next portion of this is that the council is going to look at those goals and policies and give direction to the staff on what things that they heard from the community through that survey should be directly supported. And the reason why that's important is because when Rocky or Zach or Ron decides to go out for those different grants, they're competitive grants. So if you don't have your project or your goals and policies set for what you'd like to pursue, you're not going to score really well upon those grant applications, or in some cases, you may not even qualify because it's not a listed project in your parks plan. So that's for all of you who are wondering, kind of like, why are we doing this and why are we taking the time to go out and to jump through all these hoops and to kind of scope the different projects that we'd like to see in our parks, and not just try to go out and apply for all of these different grants and monies. The reason is that we're trying to make sure that we have a good support in our comp plan and in our parks plan to be able to score well on these grant applications. And that's all I wanted to add.
Thanks, Jeff. Deb, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, so when after putting together the goals and the policies, we're going to be bringing a multidisciplinary subcommittee together in order to plant targets for the city. Those targets will allow us to say so many acres of park per 1,000 people, let's say. And the city will be able to judge itself and determine, are we sitting at 70% of our target? Are we sitting at 80% of our target? When we do development for land use, do we need to add more? Or do we have plenty of that and not enough pathways? So maybe it's linear miles of pathway for your city. Then we go out and do the inventory, find out you've only got 60% of that. Rocky then knows that he can go after funding that allows him to fill in and bring you up to what the city expects of itself for its park and recs programs. So it's pretty important. We'll be getting to that, I think, in about September-ish when we're done with the survey, because the survey really feeds everything, including these targets. So I think you guys covered it pretty well today. Thanks.
Thanks, Deb. Any more questions from council? Russ?
I have a question for the quietest member of our Parks and Rec team. Is Kelsey still around?
Yep.
She bailed on us. I wanted to know, and Zach or Ron, maybe you guys can help out, but what are you guys hearing at this point about services not being offered that they would like to see? Where are we lacking from what you're hearing in person with those who come in to sign up for different events?
The majority of the questions we get are for like baseball or softball. And we direct them obviously to Little League or GYGSA. Third behind that is flag football. And the only reason that we have decided not to offer flag football anymore is because SELA Grid Kids has their own flag football league, and they run it the same time that we run ours. And in the past, I would say probably 75% of our participants are all kids who play SELA Grid Kids tackle football for the Tomahawks. So, we tried to run it. We were going to in 2019, I believe. And we only had like 75 people sign up. And that's because Grid Kids had their flag football league going at the same time. So, we get the majority of our questions, or the majority of the feedback that we get is baseball, softball, flag football. And obviously we don't do the first two. And the third one, it's just too difficult with Grid Kids and Sozo. Sozo has their own league as well, that they run about the same time. And it'd be difficult for us to move a flag football season to earlier in the year, just because, it makes more sense for us to run a spring soccer program than it would be to run a spring flag football program, where, like Ron said earlier, we have, I think, 365 kids signed up for soccer right now, as opposed to flag football, where I think the highest number we've had is 250 maybe. But I don't know if Ron has heard any different about activities being offered at the Civic Center, whether it be for adults or seniors. We have, with the recreation side, we've had a few people say that they'd like to see more things offered for adults. But, aside from softball or volleyball or adult basketball leagues, we're back to that. We rely on school district facilities, and the city of Yakima has the biggest softball league that I know of, anywhere close to us. So, it's a little bit difficult for us to find feasible adult programming on the recreation side, just because of our reliance on the school district and the fact that that Carlin Park is 200-foot fences. It makes it a little difficult to offer adult softball with such short fences. But I'll let Ron touch on if he's heard anything from seniors or any users that are coming into the Civic Center about things that they'd like to see there.
So, in fact, yes, I have heard some folks wanting to get some programs that were being offered before COVID hit. Guess that it was actually, I came in right during that time, so it was not here. But from what I understand is they had some pinochle and bridge groups going on. And so that's going to help to get the lunch program back going again, to get these people in, to be able to find out from them also, what are they wanting? What are the seniors wanting? What are adults wanting? And so I'd look forward to getting the folks in to see what we can do. Rentals are starting to come back, and there's been a couple times where we've had a couple different groups in the building at the same time. So things are coming back. So, and like Rocky and Zach said, and Debbie mentioned on it also, it's that survey is what is really going to be our driver to get us to find out what people want. So looking forward to get it going.
See?
Do we have any more questions, council? Well, guys, it looks like you did a good job there presenting. Thank you. Unless somebody has something else, we'll take a 20-minute break and come back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Deb, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good evening, Pastor Jason.
Oh, good to see you.
Good to see you. It's good to see that blue sky out there.
Oh my goodness, it's third winter.
I know, but it was beautiful.
It was beautiful. Crazy, but beautiful.
Good evening, everybody. We are now called to order. Roll call, Teresa.
Councilmember Wickenhagen,
Here.
Councilmember Iverson,
Here.
Councilmember Marquis,
Here.
Councilmember Peterson,
Here.
Councilmember Bell,
Here.
Councilmember Costello,
Here.
Councilmember Carlson.
Here.
Everyone's here.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for prayer from Pastor Jason tonight. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for the city of Selah. We thank you for its people. We thank you for these leaders that have gathered to do your business, for the direction for the city of Selah. Lord, many thank you for the snow, but we also pray for your protection over our crops and over our all of our orchardists, all the people that are tied to that industry. We pray, Lord, that your blessing would be over this place. And for the business at hand, we pray for your guidance. It's in your strong name we pray, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Agenda changes, we have none. Public appearances, introductions, and presentations. We have Katrina Hinkle with the Downtown Association.
Hey, good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. Just wanted to remind you all that we still have a little bit left in the B&O tax incentive program that can be claimed. So if you're a business and you've been thinking about it, let's work on that. Sip and Stroll is coming up June 18th. Selah Cleanup Day is the second Saturday in May. We'll be looking for volunteers to come out and just help us maybe pull some weeds, pick up some garbage. There's probably some painting to be done. So I'll be looking for some volunteers and some help. I'll also be looking for Public Works's wish list if there's any projects they need help with. And we're certainly happy to do that. Like I said, Sip and Stroll Community Days is the third weekend in May. And the rummage sale was a huge success. And thank you to everyone that came out and purchased from us or donated to us. We were able to raise a little over $4,000 for the design committee and some of the projects they've been working on. So any questions?
How's the Easter egg hunt going?
Easter egg hunt's good. There's been some posts on social media. I've seen some folks out and about. We're just waiting to see the entry forms start rolling in. So there's still clues posting on social media.
All right.
Any other questions, guys and ladies? Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you, Katrina. Getting to know our business, we have none. Communications. There were no written comments submitted this week. Proclamations and announcements, we have none. Consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion without discussion. Should any council member request that any item on the consent agenda be considered separately, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and become part of the regular agenda.
Madam Mayor, I would like to add O1 to the consent agenda.
O1 is,
Second.
okay. Okay.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion to put O1 on the consent agenda by Russ, seconded by Roger. All those in favor? It's unanimous, Teresa.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the amendment by Russ, a second by Roger. All those in favor? Thank you. It's unanimous. Teresa, please read the consent agenda.
Approval of minutes, March 22, 2022 study session and council meeting. Approval of claims and payroll. Item number O1, ordinance amending the 2022 budget for the conversion of police shotguns to a less lethal platform. Ordinance number O2, ordinance amending the 2022 budget for the fire department radio system upgrades.
Thank you. Public hearings, we have none. General business. Under new business, we're going to have a discussion on returning to in-person meetings for our council meetings. Joe, would you like to lead this off? You're muted.
Sure, I would. Thank you. Yes. We would like to go back into in-person meetings with the council and also have a ability to put it on Zoom as well at the same time. And then people that would like to obviously communicate, they can send us an email with a question, or they can call in advance and then to Teresa and have them be able to be on their phone. So other cities are doing this. Unigap's having Zoom and in person. Moxie is just in person, if I remember right. So the governor lifted restrictions here a few weeks ago, so I think it's time. Curious what you guys think.
I'm ready to see people in person. Kevin, go ahead.
I'd like to go ahead and get back to it as well. I see no reason not to.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay,
Russ?
we'll pardon? Russ had a question?
Yeah, Russ got his hand up.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of this. I would like to offer that that online option for those who still choose to not attend, but I'm definitely a fan of this.
Roger?
Likewise, I'm in favor of it, going back to in person.
Cliff?
Long past due. Definitely.
Thank you.
In person.
Yeah. Mike, thumbs up. He wants to go back to in person. Jared, a thumbs up. Elizabeth, a thumbs up. Roger, a thumbs up. Did we get a thumbs up from Kevin? Okay, Mike, you have your hand up?
Yes, I was just going to mention that I've been on the council now since 2020. I've actually never been to a live meeting, so I'm ready.
Oh, are you going to know how to act?
No.
That's why Chief's there, is to keep the peace.
Well, Joe, I think you have your answer.
Okay, well then we will put together a announcement for the paper and we'll spell out the details and we'll just see all person in the council chambers next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Discussion regarding the use of ARPA money.
Okay, I've talked to a few of you. So I wanted to get kind of a consensus from everybody here tonight about utilizing some of this ARPA money for the efforts to build a new SELA food bank. I've looked at some of the criteria and read some things on it, and it seems to indicate that helping people that are less fortunate than some and having trouble putting food on the table, and are able to utilize food banks, so that would be an appropriate uses of the ARPA funding. So I was thinking, I think, I can't remember, 750,000 is what they need to build it. I think they're up to 525 now. So I was thinking like $50,000 from the city towards that. So I'm just curious if we got like I say, a consensus. And then I will look at finalizing that and bring that back to you folks.
All right. Kevin?
Yeah, it's not that I object to it. I have questions as to how the new food distribution store, whatever you want to call it, that's going up over on Fruitvale, that will be opening before too long. If we have any indication of the expectations of how that will affect local food banks, because I don't know if you've seen it. This place is huge.
It is big.
It is basically you go in and get whatever they're offering, and it doesn't cost anything.
And they make no restrictions or do background checks on anybody that walks in. You walk in and grab a cart, and you take what you need, and there's no questions asked.
So in regard to us using this ARPA fund for that, I'm just, yeah, I don't even know where the research would come from if the people using our local food bank don't travel, or how that might work. So that, I just have more questions than I have answers for it.
Well, let me talk with Mr. Harris and see if they have any concerns about that. I brought that up, I think the last time we talked about it, that yeah, this place over on Fruitvale is huge. And like I say, if I don't understand, you walk in, there's no background checks or nothing. They just, and it is, I believe, on our route, for our bus route, I think it either goes down that road or the other one by the east entrance into the Yakima Public Works facility. What is that, 21st or something like that? One of those streets our bus goes down.
They're on the same street.
Are they?
They're on that straight main street. Is the one in Yakima, did I hear correctly that it is going to house, there's something else in there?
Oh, I don't know.
No, the whole thing is a food bank.
Oh, I'll reach out to Bill Harris and have a discussion with him about that. But this food bank here would be in conjunction with the Natchez, City of Natchez's food bank. So he seems to think that there's a need still for it. I wouldn't think they'd move ahead if he had concerns, but stranger things have happened. But I'll reach out to him.
Russ, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I've chatted with him as well. In fact, I encouraged him to be on this meeting, but I don't see him listed. But anyway, yeah, Northwest Harvest is the one over there that's being built. It is big. They've actually been able to, Bill has been able to tour that facility, what they're building now, and talk about their plan and going forward. I think they view it as a partnership, as I don't think it's going to be in a direct competition, and they're going to build it. It's the number, Joe, I think is at 545 is where they're at. And so that's kind of where, it looks like, I think Bill's actually in now.
Yeah.
I'll be quiet, let him talk.
I see Bill Harris possibly on with his hand up. Bill, can you hear us?
I think it's under Laura Harris.
Laura?
Stand by 1 second, please.
Okay.
There you go.
Mute.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can.
Just like a cell phone commercial. Can you hear me now? Okay, so I've been listening the whole time. Do you want me to address questions? Would you like to, I can work with Joe and try to make the meeting when you're back in person which is always easier than, or we can do it right now, whatever you want to go over. I'll try to answer any and all questions.
Joe, did you have some questions, some things that you wanted to work out, and then maybe bring Bill?
I do. And but Bill, one of the questions council had is, do they think, I guess the basic question is, once the Northwest Harvest building is open and operational, do you think that that is going to be a huge impact to the Sela Food Bank, and will it still be a viable need for the city?
I think that when Northwest Harvest opens, and that the biggest part of their building is they're going to be the Eastern Washington distribution point to all the Eastern Washington food banks that they support. We do not know how that will affect all the food banks. There will be effect in all the food banks in the Yakima Valley. We still feel there's going to be a need for accessibility and outreach that we'll be able to fulfill through the Sela Natchez Food Bank, which is what we're trying to put in right now. We think that there'll be a need for people in the Sela Natchez area to use our food bank along with, in conjunction with Northwest Harvest.
When do you think they plan on opening, Bill?
When do we open?
No, the Northwest Harvest. When will they open?
You know, I don't know. I know the building's under construction, and I would think it would be up and running sometime 2023. I have no idea about their time frame, but you sure think it would be within the next year.
I asked because I heard that you did a tour of that facility.
I did not. I've not. I've been in. They're going to have us tour that facility as soon as they're giving tours, is my understanding.
Thank you.
I must have lied.
We did have a meeting with.
I wasn't going to say that.
We had a meeting with the people from Northwest Harvest about what we're doing at our food bank, and they support what we're doing in conjunction with what they're doing.
And when do you plan on getting your building permit applied for here, Bill?
Our plan is we're having our meeting tomorrow night. We're planning on making our building permit application or submit that either somewhere between June 1st and July 1st. Our goal is to get a shell up this fall that is secured. And then this winter, all the contractors that are doing discounted work or donating their work, they'll have the ability to finish that up this winter. And we hope to be open the spring of 23, which would be basically a year from now.
So can you tell us again what your finances are looking like for this?
Right now, we're at $545,000. We are $200,000 of the 545 is on borrowed funds. Being a nonprofit, we can go out and create debt. So there's from private individuals are going to loan us $200,000, and we will repay that over a 3 to 5 year time period.
So did you have some in-kind contributions, you say, for some contractors? Are you still short?
Part of, yeah, we have, well, what we're gonna want to come up with around that. We're gonna want to come up, our goal is $750,000. That's gonna pay for the property. That's gonna pay for a 16 by 12 refrigerator and a 16 by 12 freezer that will be in the building. And then we're figuring it's going to cost about $550 to build the rest of the building. We're also figuring that we're going to have to get probably 23 to 30% in donations to get that done for that number. We're also trying to forecast in a material market that nobody knows from 1 week to the next what a sheet of plywood is going to cost. And trying to forecast what plywood is going to cost next spring, nobody knows what's going to happen there. Building materials are unstable right now.
Yeah. So I guess how confident are you that if the city was to make a donation to this, that you will be able to come through and complete this?
Extremely confident. And one of the reasons that we're driven for this is that the Sela Food Bank has been in existence since 1980, starting with the Catholic Church running out of Father Queen's garage. The current warehouse is on Sela School District property, and the food bank has been notified by the school district that they would like to be out of the food warehouse business. So they've been given notice to try to find a different location. We've been looking for a location for the past 3 years, and we found the current site, which was the old car wash on the northeast property behind the grocery outlet and Tractor Supply.
Okay.
So we have already purchased the land. That is accomplished. Joe, to answer your question, this is going to happen if the city makes that the $50,000 donation. That building gets built this year. The shell of it does, and it'll be finished by spring of 23.
Okay, there you folks have it.
Yeah, I see a hand up by Mr. Peters.
Madam Mayor and council members, I just wanted to let everybody know that if you recall, when Mr. Henney brought to you the proposal to look at being able to upgrade the Civic Center and both inside and some exterior changes, one of the things that we heard from Zach and Ron at the Civic Center was that with the food bank presently having some of its services in the Civic Center, that has reduced the ability for them to store things, as well as to open that facility up more for rentals and things. So this would actually help the city bring in some more revenue at our existing Civic Center by giving the food bank a permanent home that's not competing with the existing services at the Civic Center.
Thank you, Jeff. Russ, you have your hand up?
Bill, how big is the space at the Civic Center that's being used currently?
Well, they use the center, the main part of the Civic Center for, they wheel some stuff out into the center room. The storage room that they use right now, that's probably got to be somewhere around 200 square feet, maybe 150 square feet. It's a large storage room is what it is. It's not a meeting room. It's just a large storage room. The room that they use, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, to Jeff's point, it does move out into the area of the Civic Center when it's open?
It does. Absolutely, it does.
Roger?
Yes,
Sorry,
I was just going to confirm. I've toured the Northwest Harvest facility, and they told us that their plan is to open in 23, but that they also are coming into existence as a distribution facility, primarily to support the other existing food banks and those that will open up in the future in primarily Eastern Washington, but also augment for Western Washington out of that facility.
Thank you, Roger. Zach, do you have your hand up?
I do. I was going to just touch on Bill's answer for Russ. They use the entire main room at the Civic Center on Mondays and Fridays from about 7 in the morning until noon. They're open until 11, but they stay open until they service the last person. So if you show up at 10:59 and you're the 8th person in line, they'll stay open until you go through. So they bring stuff in from their storage at the school district, and then they spread out through the entire main room until they're done on Mondays and Fridays. But they take up the whole thing from the stage to the back. So,
And one of the things that we think that we can increase in outreach by having our own facility and the access to that and increase storage. One of the things, working with the Sela School District, the Natchez East School District, we hope to start what we're going to call a backpack program, where kids that are identified in the district by school counselors will have the ability to give kids a prepackaged box of food that on a Friday afternoon they can take with them that will fit in their backpack. So there's not something that is identifiable and you don't have any type of guilt or shame issues going on where they're walking around with a free box of food. If the student does not have a backpack, we will provide them with one. And this is something that the school district is excited about. It's been out there in a few places around the nation. We think it's something very doable. We're working with Treetop as a possible title sponsor that will be able to provide food for kids to take home with them. The school districts are able to feed the kids during the day on a school day, Monday through Friday. This would augment some type of food that they can take home with them over a holiday or a weekend. So there's some other options that we have as far as programs that we can start out of that food bank if we have our own storage facility and the ability to open it during the hours that we want to be open. But right now we have to be open when the civic center is open. We hope to extend our hours a little bit because if you're working 9 to 5 and you're a single parent, it's kind of hard to make that food bank. Does anybody have any other questions towards that? I'm sorry.
That's all right. Russ, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about everyone else, but I'm a fan of participating here, and I don't. Joe, do you need a motion for this, or you just want a general consensus?
I just want a consensus right now.
Hey, if I could say one more thing before you do that, Joe, to answer your question, I am sure that if the city puts that 50 towards the food bank, towards the construction of that building, unless something comes up with construction that we cannot perceive, we're going to have that building up and running in 23.
Joe, how much do we expect to have of this ARPA money available to us?
Were you asking me? I didn't hear you.
Yeah. How much money are we expected to have from ARPA?
Well, I can't remember if it's after June or after July, but we should get about 1.12 million. But as you've seen and as you've heard, there is growing competition for those funds. So, yeah.
From my seat, I'm a fan of participating here.
Cliff, you have your hand up?
Well, sort of to play off, I think, the direction that Russ was going, that I have nothing against helping out with the food bank. I think that's a worthy cause, and I think that we ought to move ahead in that direction. But I'd also, there are a lot of other things that we could use the ARPA money for, and I'd sort of like to see everything grouped up, like these are our ideas and how can we prioritize which ones we get how much money to. I don't have any problems with, and I don't think that the $50,000 to the food bank would make a big dent in our ARPA money, but I'd sort of like to see all of it more or less together in one proposal.
Well, Now, we can come up with some more ideas. I've got some more ideas in the back of my head, but the ARPA funds, if I remember right, need to be obligated by the end of, I want to say next year, and they have to be spent and fully accounted for by the end of 26. So, yeah, to make a list and throw a bunch of things at it, and then later on something really good comes around and we don't have any money left. I don't know, but that's, you guys tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. But
Kevin, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just in passing, also the money, the ARPA money from the county is available. Since this is a joint venture between Natchez and SELA, that might be a good, I'm not trying to pass the buck. I'm just saying that there's another option of where some of that money can possibly come from.
Or additional, I guess, yeah.
Or additional.
We are going to be making application to the county for those same funds. We have until the 27th to make that application.
Okay, thank you. Otherwise, I see this as a worthy cause as well.
Thank you, Kevin. Jared.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. This to me is a no-brainer to allocate some money to this. I, as well as Cliff, would definitely like to kind of see where else we can put that money and maybe try and prioritize that. But I think that it's a small amount, in my opinion, a small piece of the pie. And I think this is an absolute worthy cause. So I'm on board.
Thank you. I just saw Roger put his thumbs up. They might put his thumbs up. Elizabeth put her thumbs up.
Okay, let me then do a little more due diligence on it.
Okay.
Try to get some guidance from the Department of Commerce, but they're keeping this pretty close to the vest. They just don't want to give individual approvals to different cities for things. And the only thing they do say is that they are not going to be a overseer to a point of this. So they're going to give broad discretionary thoughts to this, they said. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
C, Mr. Case.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council, you'll see that this next item is recited on the agenda as referring to the public defender contract. I'm going to turn this over here to Scott Brumback in a minute. He's a local attorney here in the area. But I want to first let you know that there is no proposed contract that we're presenting to you to consider today. Rather, Mr. Brumback's firm is already in a contractual relationship with the city, whereby his firm provides the public defender work that the city necessitates via its city court. So there's no action item for you to consider. And this is also not going to be a negotiation. Rather, what I would characterize this as is Mr. Brumback has some information and comments that he would like to offer to you. And we are going to be receiving those. And of course, you're certainly welcome to ask questions to clarify anything he offers you. But I just wanted to give these initial prefatory comments to you to let you know that there's not a proposed contract and this is not a negotiation. This is rather, again, somebody or really a firm that we're already doing business with that we're discussing that. So with that, I'll turn it over to my friend and colleague here in the local area, Scott Brumback.
Well, thanks for letting me address council. I appreciate it. And really, this is just a long overdue introduction. I haven't met you together before, and I think since 2015, we've had the public defender contract with your city. And I guess, I'd like to blame it on COVID or something like that, but it's really on me. I should have been in and seen you before this. And really today is just about me saying, this is me. I've met a few of them. I know Mike Costello when I was a prosecutor at the city of Yakima. He was a great YPD officer there. Sherry, I've met before. And some of you I've run into here and there. But I just wanted to, extend an invitation for you all to come and see our office if you'd like it. I mean, I know that's probably at the top of everyone's list to go to a lawyer's office and hang out. But if you really want to see what we're doing, I'd be happy to give you a tour, show you the folks who work in our office. We have about 15 people that work in our office. My former partner, Wiley Hurst, was not only a great friend, but he was very acutely aware of how to be efficient in handling cases. And the efficiency allows people to be well served. And that's our goal. That's my goal, whether it's with my private clients that come into our office or our public defender clients. We want to make sure that everyone is well served. And we want to do that at the best price possible. So that's really it. Feel free to, come down, meet us. Happy to take you on a tour, as exciting as that sounds. And if you have any questions, I wanted to make myself available so that you could say, hey, Scott, I was curious about this or that. And that's really all I have. I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Does anybody have any questions for Scott? Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Russ?
Appreciate it. Oh.
Russ? You have a question?
Thanks for being here.
Yes.
I'm curious, a couple of things, obviously with this item in our council packet, we received an email from the gentleman who is doing your public defender. It indicates him as Country Law. Is that a subcontractor to you?
Yes. I mean, he's tasked with this appearing in court if needed. I mean, I've appeared in court. I was there, I think last month. Sid has been there as well. We all appear, but Bill Schuler is the primary lead attorney as far as handling the public defender contract. Sometimes there are conflicts where he's not able to handle it, and either I or somebody else will be contracted to on an ad hoc basis to handle a case here or there. But Bill Schuler will handle the bulk of the cases. And I think the email that you were maybe looking at is in reference to, it's been around 2014 or so, the state of Washington had some issues with caseload for criminal defense attorneys. Some of them would have so many cases that it would become almost a per se situation where they simply could not serve all their clients well enough. So one of the concerns is we want to track, how Bill's doing on his caseload. In fact, he was in today and we were talking to him about this, and we're going to have him, detail to us precisely where he is as we go along the calendar year. So we know exactly if he's getting close to that. Basically, it's a 400 case per year threshold of misdemeanor cases. And then if you have felony cases or other types of cases, that affects it. But basically, if you use the misdemeanor cases, about 400 a year, in terms of the SELA contract, we're under that. But we want to make sure we're not getting danger close to that. And I know that sometimes there can be fluctuations where, let's say, post-COVID, there's more activity, there's more arrests, there's more citations. We want to make sure that we're good to go in handling the caseload. And the main thing, as you know, and I run a business and you guys run a business really too of a city, you don't want to be surprised by something. You want to know ahead of time what's coming and plan for it. And that's really what we're talking about here. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does a little bit. I had a follow-up question.
So is he, I mean, the email seems to be asking about compensation. I guess I'm trying to figure out how this affects us at this point in terms of forecasting and things like that. But he's the lead defense attorney, but he is a subcontractor. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, my firm has the contract, and so that email probably should have not happened, to be candid, and I think it's important to be candid.
Sure.
And so there are different ways to talk about those issues, and that wasn't probably the one that we want to use.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, old business, we have none. Resolutions. N1, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, council. For your consideration tonight is a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a construction contract with AA Asphalting LLC for the Natchez Avenue Sidewalk Improvements Project. Bids were opened on March 31st, and a total of 5 bids were opened. The lowest qualified bid was for the amount of $365,525. And this was by AA Asphalting LLC of Sumner, Washington. The amount is approximately 26% higher than the cost estimate. Regardless, HLA and Public Works both recommend that the city award the project to AA Asphalting. The city will reduce the quantity of material for construction to bring the project into the budgeted funding amount approved by council for the 2022 budget. Are there any questions?
Roger.
Exactly. What do you mean by you'll reduce it? What are we changing the scope of the job then that it won't be as much, or?
We are not changing the scope of the project. We are still constructing a sidewalk project with curb gutter sidewalk. What we are reducing is the quantity of the materials. So the asphalt, concrete, all of that. So what we're going to reduce is from 1st to 2nd on Natchez Avenue. We're going to take that portion of the project out. In order to do this, we have to award the contract at the full bid price of $365,525. Now, per section 1-04.4 of the standard specifications, on any project, the city may consider deleting any part of the work, including increasing or decreasing quantities. Does that help?
Yes, somewhat. I was concerned that it does sound like we're eliminating from 1st to 2nd, which would be in front of City Hall. Is there a plan to repair that then, if that's what we're doing?
Well, yes, we would want to do another project in front of City Hall. The project that from 1st to 2nd is only the curb, gutter, and sidewalk. It does not include the improvements that are needed for City Hall itself for the ADA ramp. And so I would like to look at including those improvements on the next project.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Russ, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. What was the original budgeted amount? Was that the 289?
The original budgeted amount, including the engineers' costs, are 319. So by reducing it, we're going to be down approximately 260,000 plus the 13,000 for engineering.
This is Kevin. I move to approve resolution N1.
Cliff, second.
We have a motion to approve by Kevin, a second by Cliff. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, Teresa.
Councilmember Wickenhagen,
Yes.
Councilmember Iverson,
Yes.
Councilmember Marquis, oh, just in time for a vote. Did I hear you say yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bell,
Yes.
Councilmember Costello,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlson,
Yes.
Thank
unanimous.
you. Resolution N2, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you. This is a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign task order number 2022-03 with HLA Engineering and Land Surveying, Inc. for engineering and survey services necessary for a Washington State Department of Transportation funding application for the Safe Routes to School project. The city intends on turning in an application for East Home Avenue, and that will be between North Wenas and North First Street. And then there's also a portion of North Third Street from Fremont down to Bartlett Avenue that we are seeking to have improvements made on to go along with the John Campbell improvements that were made by the school district there on North Third Street. Are there any questions?
Roger?
I move to approve.
Mike, second.
We have a motion to approve by Roger, a second by Mike. Is there any discussion, council? Kevin?
Yeah, just which side of the, on Home, or is that planned on being on? North or south?
It'd be the north side of Home. Currently, the school district has a project that they're going to be redoing their bus barns. And so in the middle of that block, they're going to do a driveway approach improvement along with the sidewalk improvements that need to be made instead of doing a cash in lieu of. And so it was my thought that since they want to construct those improvements, the best thing for the city in that area would be to make that sidewalk gap between those two, complete that. And then if you look at a map, Home is the first street if you're heading from East Goodlander to the south. Home is the first street that you can actually walk up to North First on. And currently there is not a sidewalk there for anyone to utilize. And so that was the thought on that.
Thank you, Kevin. Seeing no other hands, roll call, Teresa.
Councilmember Wickenhagen,
Yes.
Councilmember Iverson,
Yes.
Councilmember Marquis,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bell,
Yes.
Councilmember Costello,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlson,
Yes.
unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
N3, Mr. Case.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council, this is the last action item for your consideration tonight. Action item N-3. It's a resolution that proposes a purchasing and contracting policy. If you recall back in January, during the meeting on January 11th, I believe it was, I brought forth to you at that time the working draft that we had at that time. That was a bit of a collaborative effort. I'll tell you that our clerk treasurer, Dale, had made the first stab at drafting the document. I then kind of took it over and was adding to it and enlarging it. And then Public Works through Rocky and also HLA, our contracted engineering firm, engineering and surveying firm, who works with a lot of municipalities on a lot of issues that include budgeting and contracting and purchasing, had further input. And so that was kind of a collaborative effort at that point. When I brought it forward to you at January 11th, there was basically my recollection, and the minutes and audio video recording would show it truthfully. There was really just two concerns that the council at that time expressed. as to two provisions. One of those pertained to IT purchases and some of the language in there. And then the second was in reference to, in regards to each time that the policy references a city administrator or mayor's designee and that issue and how we've been changing that language to be uniform throughout our policies. Subsequent to that first January 11th meeting, I then gave you an oral update on January 25th and let you know that this was still a work in process and that HLA was giving us further input. That has now occurred, and I now am bringing forward to you what we're considering a final draft. I did not give you a red line of this draft in comparison to the one that was presented to you on January 11th because the formatting and other things have changed substantially enough that I didn't think a red line version would really actually be helpful. But as I say in the AIS cover statement, substantively, this version is identical to the prior version. It accomplishes the same things. Rather, it just includes some more topics now, such as the concept of like a small works roster that if, when we get to the discussion portion, if you have questions on, Mr. Wallace or Mr. Hinney might have a little bit more data than I can offer. But I'll certainly entertain any clarifying questions the council might have before we might move to a motion in a second and then actual discussions about the merits of the proposed policy. So with that, I'll turn it over to if there's any clarifying questions. I'm seeing no physical hands or electronic emoji hands. So if we have a motion in a second, we can get into the merits.
I move to approve.
Kevin, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Kevin, or by Russ, a second by Kevin. Is there any discussion, council? Seeing none, Teresa, roll call.
Councilmember Wickenhagen,
Yes.
Councilmember Iverson,
Yes.
Councilmember Marquis,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bell,
Yes.
Councilmember Costello,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlson,
Yes.
unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, Rob. Public appearances, we have none. Reports and announcements. Chief Ling. You're muted. Jim?
Oh, thought I clicked that button. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I reported to you before that we were going to start our annual hydrant testing to begin that in mid-April. Well, due to the weather, that's been postponed for a little while, so we don't freeze up the roads and whatnot. So you'll see them out there, but it'll just be a little later. Still working on the county radio committee, the EMS levy committee, and Joe and I have been working on the hazard mitigation plan with the county. So those are ongoing. Valley Fire dispatch move. We made that dispatch move I talked to you about. That went very smooth. Everything is going great. A couple of little irons to figure out here, but otherwise it's been wonderful so far. Deputy Chief Gilly is currently in Emmitsburg, Maryland at the National Fire Academy for the Managing Officer program. He'll be back next week. I took a trip to Florida to visit manufacturing plant for the aerial device we're going to purchase. We got to look at a lot of trucks. We went over all the specs, all 40 some pages of specs, and we actually narrowed down some stuff. So we saved a little bit more money on that, but added back that same amount of money for some fluffier items that we didn't include on the first one. So everything's on pace. They're on track for that. We should receive that vehicle June of 2023. So be patient with us. All of our new AEDs are in service, and the old AEDs that we've surplused have been delivered to PD for use in the patrol cars, and Chief Chrisman could elaborate on that if you'd like. The new radios that you voted on to do the budget transfer, those have been installed in our mobile radios have been installed. Our portable radios, the ones we talk on in our hands, are not in service yet. We need to do an in-service on them and have a couple more programming issues. Supposed to be done next week. So that's moving along good. We modified our guaranteed standby program, which is the volunteers can come in and pull a shift on Fridays and Mondays when we were a little bit more shorthanded with full-time staff. I've changed that to every day of the week to promote some volunteerism and get some more help from them. And that starts the 15th, but I've heard some excitement about that. So there's a couple of people willing to come in and help us out. Other than that, I would like to move 21,000 from the supply line item from reserves to purchase mattresses for upstairs for the sleeping quarters rather than request a budget adjustment for capital. And Dale, help me if I'm misstating, but that was just for discussion and your input if you would be agreeable to that. The money is there. The mattresses that we got 5 years ago are used every night. They're getting wore out, and that was missed in our budget request at the end of last year. Correct, Dale? Dale, I saw you come on. Is that correct?
Yes, Jim, you are correct.
Okay. Council, do you have any objections to that right offhand? I will bring that back to you then. In the city, we had a structure fire Sunday morning, 1066 Sela Loop. It didn't destroy the whole structure, but there are a lot of wiring and smoke damage and displaced 2 families. It was a duplex building. Wanted to keep you up on that. Nobody was injured. That was good. Joe, if you're looking for it, I already have a list for ARPA funds consideration. So anytime I'll bring it over. And as a reminder, Roger, the commissioner meeting tonight, if you can make it. Is there any questions for me, council? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Chrisman.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, council. Long time no see. Wanted to tell you a few things that are going on. I'm not going to be as long as Chief Lang. Shout out to the fire department. They did deliver 4 AEDs to the police department. So we're going to have one in our facility just in case someone were to come in the front door and have a cardiac event. We'll have that available here. Then the other 3 are going to be deployed in the police vehicles. And so that was a nice gift to receive from the fire department. I've been working on several grants through the Department of Emergency Management, and was contacted by them, and they've been helping with that process. We're looking at acquiring some ballistic helmets, some heavy vests, and 4 ballistic shields that could be kept in the sergeant's vehicles at all times to deploy to an event. I've also written a grant for some electronic speed signs that can be moved around the city. And so these signs also can broadcast a Bluetooth signal to my laptop and so to my desktop and let me know when cars have exceeded a certain speed limit. We can set those parameters on those signs as well. Next week, we'll be interviewing entry-level police officer applicants in order to create a list that'll be certified by the Civil Service Commission that we can hire off of in the future here. You may have seen around town over the last couple of days a lot of red and blue lights. We participated in a statewide distracted driving emphasis in the city. And we advertised it on our social media outlets, let people know that we were going to be out there, and then we blanketed the city for a couple of days. We made over 175 or so stops over that 2-day period, and either issued tickets or issued warnings for people who were driving distracted. So the interesting thing is we received a lot of very positive feedback from the community about that. Our collision rate has increased over the last year, and many of the collisions that we saw were as a result of just being distracted, whether that be, on the cell phone or messing around with the radio or eating a hamburger or having a puppy in your lap, all those things that divide your attention. So We've been pretty busy here, but things are good. So any questions, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, I'll move on.
Russ?
Does the distraction include children in my car? Please don't.
Yes, yes, definitely your car. Yeah.
I just wanted to touch again on our discussion earlier. I think I'd be in favor of encouraging YB-COG to house that facility, those offices in our new building, assuming it gets voted through. I think that was one of the basis for our discussion of why we were building it, to house other departments. So I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but that's my opinion. And whatever we need to do to encourage that, to help cover some of the operating costs of our own facility, I'm in favor of it.
Thank you, Russ. Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the building department, we've been fairly busy. We haven't seen a lot of new construction permits come in, although we have seen a lot of, with our windstorms that have come through, a lot of re-roof permits and things like that, and people adding on to their homes and fence permits and things like that, more smaller projects. As Rocky kind of mentioned earlier, the school district is going to be bringing in and starting their permit for the bus barn that they're working on, as well as an interior remodel project on their administrative offices. And then we have the other larger project that we have that's come through is the that they're doing the utilities for, is the brewery that is going to be on the entry to town. So those are the large building projects. As usual, our code enforcement officer, Aaron Barnett, has been out getting going as the weather was, at least a couple weeks ago, warmer, and people were doing things outside besides sheltering from the snow. So she'll be continuing to go out and to get people to clean up their projects and their properties and make sure that our town is safe and sound and looking good. So on the planning side of things, I don't have a whole lot. I'll be moving to start work on the update to our code enforcement chapters and our fire codes, making those all marry up. So hopefully I will be able to bring those to you sometime this summer, a draft of it. And I'll be working with our fire chief on that, as well as Rocky over here in Public Works. Also, at the end of this month, I'll be attending the PAW conference, hopefully getting some additional information about the changes that the governor has required for our Growth Management Act requirements for accommodating, I'll call it lower income members of our community, and housing for those folks, and ensuring that we have facilities for them in our community and our planning for that. So hopefully I'll have some answers for you when I get done back from that. But other than that, that's all I have. Thank you. Any questions?
You're off the hook, Jeff.
Thank you much.
Thank you. Mr. Wallace?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to try to be fast. Joe, I do have projects for that money as well. Tomorrow, I have two bid openings, one on Woodfield fence, and then also the Crusher Canyon sewer project. I'm going to forewarn you now, next council meeting, I have approximately 7 items that I will have on the council agenda. So it may be a long one or hopefully short, depending on how we go with it. The wastewater collection system improvements project is going well. They're going to tentatively switch to nights beginning April 18th, and that will have a detour on Jim Clements Way to East Fremont, and that detour is going to be from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.-ish. Are there any questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you, Rocky. Mr. Shab.
Hello again, everybody. We are picking up the Civic Center. Ron's doing a great job of getting people back in. Soccer starts this weekend as long as we don't continue to get snow. And then I am in Bellevue this week at the annual WRPA conference and trade show. So I'll be in and out this week from the Myanmar Center here in downtown Bellevue between classes and working on comp plan stuff and making sure Ron and Kelsey are doing all right back at the Civic Center by themselves. Hopefully we'll come back refreshed with some new ideas, with some new contacts, so that when we do get started on the stuff that's on our comp plan, we can have a foot in the door with some places. But if anybody needs me this week, I'll be available by email and phone. Otherwise, I'll be listening to Brad Evans of the Sounders talk to people about leadership and all kinds of stuff. So if you guys have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, that's all I've got.
Thank you, Zach. Mr. Case.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council, as you see on your agenda, at the end of tonight, we have an executive session about litigation. So I'll obviously address the litigation cases then. The only other comments I'll tell you now is just a heads up. For the next council meeting, I'm contemplating bringing forward to you 2 proposals to repeal some portions of our city code. So I'm just going to forewarn you about that now. There's no need to get into the discussion of it right now. But it's going to be, they're both in Title I of our city code. The first one will be a full repeal of Chapter 1.14. That's currently entitled Swimming Pool Employees and Regulations. We just don't have a city swimming pool. I know that there's a pool here at the city that's on city property, but it's not the city's pool. So it's just a vestige in our code that probably needs to come out. The other one is at the end of Title I. It's Chapter 1.62. That's entitled Lawful Hiring and Contracting Requirements Compliance. If you glance at that, you'll see that that's mostly E-Verify standards and procedures. And we're going to be bringing forward to you a large repeal of that. Some of that will have to stay even if you do agree with the large repeal, because some federal projects require that. But it's not a requirement under state law. And it's something that's probably a little bit too cumbersome to keep for just the city law. So just a heads up that those 2 things are likely coming next time. That's the totality of my report, other than what we'll get into in the executive session.
Thank you. Mr. Carlson.
No report.
Thank you. Mr. Wickenhagen.
No report.
Thank you. Ms. Marquez.
No report, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Iverson.
The only plug I have is just the superintendent search. It's narrowed down to the finalists. So this week tonight, which we missed, tomorrow night and Thursday the 14th, the public is able to go and meet the candidates and ask questions, and then provide that feedback to the school board for consideration of their final decision. And so all of the details are on the school's website. And so again, that tonight was tonight at 6 p.m. It's tomorrow and Thursday as well. And then I believe that they will be selecting a candidate at the end of this week, according to their schedule. And that's the only report I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I need to break here. Mr. Novobelsky, did I miss you?
Yes, I believe you did.
Are you pouting?
No.
Okay. Do you have a report?
Sure. So the March financials are available on the city website. So anyone interested can go to celawa.gov, click on Departments in Finance, and there you'll see all kinds of good financial, transparent information about the city. And then the other thing I'd like to mention is last week I did have the pleasure of meeting with the Finance Committee and the city administrator. And I was directed that at our next council meeting, I'm going to present a budget adjustment to transfer some fund balances that are in excess of the requirements of our financial policy. And what that would consist of is from Fund 001 General, you're going to see a budget adjustment to move $1 million over to Fund 140 Contingency Reserve, which is like a rainy day fund, a savings account for the general fund. In Fund 411 Water, there's approximately $1 million excess that the Finance Committee has directed that I will transfer over to Fund 461 Water Reserve, which will be available for future construction efforts. And then in Fund 415 Sewer, I will be transferring $200,000 over to Fund 465, which is a sewer reserve fund, which is also available money for capital improvements, but being restricted to the sewer fund. So that's my complete report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'm sorry I missed you. Mr. Peterson.
I have no report.
Thank you. Mr. Costello.
No report, Madam Mayor.
And what have you guys been doing? Mr. Bell.
I've been staying in out of the snow, so no report.
Thank you. I just want to remind council, have you filed your F1 filing yet? Has everybody got that done? Russ, get on it. You're getting down to the deadline. And also June 21, 22, 23 is the AWC conference in Vancouver. If you're planning on attending, will you please contact Teresa? It's a good way to learn a lot of things that are going on in cities. There's just a lot of information out there, a lot of classes you can go to and kind of talk with other council members, other mayors, other city leadership. It's very informative. So get a hold of Teresa if you plan on going. And that's all I have.
Can you give those dates again?
June 21, 22, and 23. Okay. Also with that, there is no meeting, the second meeting in June. We don't have that for your new council members. So it's just one meeting in June. Okay, we are now going to go into an executive session.
Madam Mayor, do you want to announce what we're going in for?
It is for litigation. Wait till we get logged off here.
Madam Mayor, when do you plan to return?
I don't have a time on this. Rob, how long do you want to have this?
I think if we return by 7, that'll probably suffice.
Okay, 7 o'clock, Teresa. So we're going to go into an executive session. It is 6:43 now. We will be back at 7 o'clock.
All participants, you'll need to log off. If I remove you from the meeting, you won't be able to return after the executive session. Okay, so hey Dale, if you can hear me, can you, oh, never mind.